I want to discuss two more important negotiation concepts before we get into how to negotiate. In this video, we'll talk about Batna and the importance of common ground. So, first up, Batna. Batna stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. The question to ask yourself in any negotiation scenario is, if I can't reach an agreement with the other person, what's my best other choice? This is a very personal question, so everyone will have a different answer, even for the same situation. But we can generalize a little bit. Sometimes, if you can't come up with an agreement, your best alternative is just to walk away. Imagine that you find something you want to buy on Canal Street or at a yard sale. If you can't get the seller to lower the price to what you would pay, it's probably not the end of the world. Other situations are more difficult. Let's say you're graduating from LAM and looking for a full-time job. You want to stay in New York and you've calculated that you can't live on less than $30,000 a year, and you want a job in your field. But let's say you can't find that. Everyone wants to pay you less or to hire you for another retail job just like the one you went to college to leave behind. In this case, it's not as easy to see what your best alternative is. But your best alternative might be very different from other people's. Can you live at home in New Jersey, work part-time, and look for a job? Are you willing to accept a job that meets your salary expectations in another part of the country? Would you consider enrolling in graduate school? There's no one right answer. The important part is that if you have thought about this in advance, if you realistically know what your best alternatives are, you're not going to panic and accept a terrible deal because you're afraid of losing out. This week's discussion board asks you to negotiate with your roommate about how to keep your apartment clean. Consider what your BATNA might be if the two of you can't come to an agreement. What would you do then? Would you break the lease? Would you clean everything yourself? Remember, before beginning any negotiation, you should know what you'll do if you can't reach an agreement with the other party. The other important concept is that both parties to have a zone of agreement in order to have a successful negotiation. If you are trying to buy a car and have $5,000, there's no point in shopping for Ferraris. If I want a job that pays at least $20 an hour but you won't go over 10, we're both wasting our time. Of course, in an actual negotiation, it's not always clear what the minimum or maximum is for the other party. It might seem reasonable to offer $5,000 for a car that has been advertised at $6,000, but the buyer still might say no. In any negotiation, it's important to know what your own maximum or minimum is and be willing to walk away if the other party can't meet that. The term used by negotiators for this is the zone of possible agreement. It's less important to remember this term, though, and more important to remember that there has to be some zone of overlap between what you want and what the other party wants.